It's the Mac, it's the Mac, it's the Steez dripping Mac, it's the Steez dripping Mac, it's the Steez dripping Mac. Begging on Project Paddle, the money stacker. Now my pocket's sitting fatter.
Bass beating down your block, boy. Bass beating down your block, boy. All I hang around is block boys. In my pocket, that's a knot, boy. Think you hot, but you not, boy. Bass beating down your block, boy. Bass beating down your block, boy. Bass beating down your block, stunting.
Breakdown.
We're if you're well, I mean it's only one person, so we're gonna check out Guardians of the Galaxy 3 breakdown. If you haven't seen the movie, don't watch the video. If you have, hey, welcome. Tell me how you enjoyed the movie. I really enjoyed the movie. I had a fun time. Saw it in 4DX. That was amazing. Felt like I had a roller coaster and a movie all at once. I really enjoyed the ending or the conclusion to the Guardians of the Galaxy, or at least James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy run, and the way they ended it was a right way to do it. Or I don't say right, yeah, it was a right way to do it, and it was a good way he did it. So I really want more Guardians, in my opinion. And I really enjoyed it, man. It was really a good ride. The villain was a really good villain. I don't really care. He was one of the ones I don't really care if he died, but I know, because I know Marvel be killing off their villains, but this one I didn't really care. Like, he was such a good villain that I didn't mind that he died. Yeah, I didn't mind he died, but yeah, man, this was a really good movie. I really liked how they incorporated Rocket's backstory and with the flashbacks, and how they really did it, how well they really did it throughout the movie. Like, they did a good job, because there's certain movies that do good jobs and bad jobs of flashback memories and the way they go about it, or at least they placed it. This one here, they placed it real well. It fit smoothly with the movie. It didn't, like, it wasn't like too much. They didn't show too much. It was like each time they showed it, it was like, oh shit, here we go. Here comes another fucked up memory, right? But it was a really good movie, man. So with that being said, we about to check out new ROCKSTARS breakdown of Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the finale to James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy saga, and a true heartbreaker for lovers of animals and proper skincare. I am going to break down this full film, scene by scene, for all the visual details, Marvel Easter eggs, deeper layers of meaning that you might have missed, and I will say you will appreciate this even more if you check out my Guardians rewatch analyses on the Deep Dive channel, including today's Volume 3 live stream Q&A, and you can support the new ROCKSTARS network with a Guardians-inspired shirt design like this 89P13 Rocket Science shirt, or one of our many other Guardians designs over at nerdriot.shop. The film opens with a Guardians of the Galaxy themed version of the Marvel Studios title card, with moments and script lines from across their 7 appearances in the MCU prior to this: 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, 2017's Guardians Volume 2, Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, Thor Love and Thunder, I Am Groot, and the Guardians Holiday Special. The quotes include Drax's Volume 2 line about dancers versus non-dancers, his symbolic journey that gets paid off at the end of this movie, and Rocket's line from Volume 1, "Ain't nothing like me except me," a uniqueness that we will explore in this opening scene. The first image in yellow on the Marvel text is Rocket crying the moment we are Grooted, and the last before the images wipe away are the Guardians' first team-up shot in the kiln in Volume 1. From this, we fade in.
I rewatched Marvel. I rewatched it. The first Guardians, the second one, before I saw the third one, and bro, I haven't watched the first Guardians in a while, and I forgot how good the first Guardians was, bro. Like, like the tone of it, just them meeting each other before they become a team was like, bro, it like like I don't think there's any other like. I think that other people could have done it well, but I don't think there's another better version. There probably is, but I feel like that's the perfect version for the first Guardians movie, to be for us to be introducing them, and it was just like scene after scene. It was like looking at it's like looking at comic panels, bro. Like the whole, hold on.
Last, before the images wipe away, are the Guardians' first team up shot in a
Yo,
kiln involved.
this whole like shot right here is like a comic panel, bro. Like it's like watching moving comic panels.
Raccoons. Now these kits were designed by VFX company Framestore, and they are so playful.
What?
You can see the smiles on their faces until the door opens and their ears fold down. All you fellow dog owners out there know that when the ears fold down like that, it means the animal is triggered. Also, a big no-no, the High Evolutionary reaches in with his palm facing down, which they always advise against because it's a threatening gesture. You should always reach out with your palm facing up. All the other kits cower away, leaving 89P13 alone front and center to be grabbed. Why didn't Rocket hide with them though? Maybe
That's
bravery?
a good question.
Maybe he just wanted to spare the other kits, or maybe there's something unique about his brain that makes him more defiant in the face of this kind of cruelty. There's this really cool effect where we push in on Rocket's nose and the fur warps into a different head shape. In the trailer, it's just a cross dissolve, but in the film, it shows how Rocket's skull was physically reshaped by Wyndham's surgeries. This cruel experimentation on Rocket was alluded to in the past films, the implant scars still visible on his back in the kiln, his drunken rant.
I didn't ask to get made.
Oh yeah.
I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster.
Rocket, no one's calling you a monster.
In Volume 2, Yondu's line,
I know them scientists what made you never gave a rat's ass about you. I'm serious, dude.
which was interesting because it shows that Yondu knew who Herbert Wyndham was. He wasn't some man in the shadows. He was out proud and publicly doing this to creatures around the galaxy. There's also this subtle line in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, then what's his face? That's all Gamora knew about him. Like she was saying, like he was just like everybody knows what he does.
Publicly doing this to creatures around the galaxy. There's also this subtle line in Avengers Endgame.
He's pissed. He thinks he failed, which of course he did, but there's a lot of that going around, ain't there?
Honestly, until this exact second, I thought you were Build-A-Bear.
Maybe I am.
Rocket has until now not known exactly what species he is, only denying that he was a raccoon because of its negative connotation whenever someone called him that. But this movie clears it up, and it's interesting how, like Build-A-Bear, they do go back to the manufacturer. So we transition to present-day Rocket on Nowhere. Remember, Nowhere is the severed head of a Celestial, introduced in Volume 1 and revisited in Infinity War, and as of the holiday special, the new home of the Guardians and all the refugees after Thanos' conflicts. We hear an acoustic version of Radiohead's Creep, played from the Zune. This Zune was passed on to Peter Quill from Yondu via Kraglin at the end of Volume 2 to replace Peter Quill's Walkman and mixtape that was crushed by Ego. This Zune contains music from all decades, all the way through the 2000s. So this soundtrack has some modern music on it. Creep came out in 1992, and it has been sampled and used again and again, most notably in the Swedish Girls Choir cover of the Social Network trailer music. This song is the anthem of the lonely outcast. But we have to note that Radiohead's Tom York told Rolling Stone that he thought his lyrics were pretty crap. So it's really a song about self-hatred and hating yourself for hating yourself. James Gunn always writes his track list into his scripts, and he plays the music on set to inspire the actors and justifies the music source in the context of the scene to make it diegetic, so that the songs aren't just randomly playing over everything, but really they're a choice a character made to play and to listen to. Rocket shows this acoustic
I noticed that.
version.
I peeped it in the second movie with the father and son song. Like you notice it when. Even in this movie, you notice if you listen to the lyrics also.
Creep to feel especially mopey about the all-time mopiest song. Rocket passes Mantis and Drax. Mantis tries to get Drax to dance, and he says, "Only idiots dance." This calls back Drax's line in Volume 2.
There are two types of beings in the universe.
Yeah.
Those who dance,
and those who don't.
do not.
Which inspired my long-running MCU theory that all Marvel characters are either dancers or non-dancers. And dancers are the team players, while the non-dancers might need the multiverse or some other kind of love connection to find a dance partner. But eventually, everyone in the universe is going to join in some kind of dance, for better or worse. Nebula pins up a neon sign written in the Kree language that translates to Guardians of the Galaxy, which closed many of the trailers for this movie. Helping her is Swole Groot. Now remember, Groot beefed up in the Guardian special to show him being in an early 20 college jock stage of his development, having a different anatomy than the Volume 1 adult Groot, because that Groot was technically this Groot's father. They are not clones of each other. Groot is a species called Flora Colossus.
Wait, what?
Development having a different anatomy than the Volume 1 adult Groot, because that Groot was technically this Groot's father. They are not clones of each other. Groot is a species called Flora Colossus. They feed on what's called photonic knowledge that's gained from light sources. And since Groot has been in the company of beings like Quill and Mantis, who are descended from a celestial, I have theorized that he might have absorbed their celestial light and he grew more this way. It was confirmed in the Guardians Holiday Special that Mantis is indeed a child of Ego, making her Peter's half-sibling, explaining why one of Ego's mates in that movie was the same race as Mantis, part of a deleted scene in which we would have met Mantis's mother. Nebula has a new nanotech weave arm. Gunn confirmed that this was made for her by Rocket to thank her for gifting him Bucky's detached vibranium arm from the Holiday Special, which we still have no idea how she got.
How did he get? How did
Gunn confirmed that this was made for her by Rocket to thank her for gifting him.
How did she get? I really, bro. I really want to see the scene of how she got this arm from him.
Bucky's
I need to know,
vibranium
bro.
arm from the Holiday Special, which we still have no idea how she got. Rocket continues to listen to the song all the way into this bar on Nowhere where Peter's drunk. We saw him moping in here in the Holiday Special. He's still depressed over Gamora. He's got issues. Rocket sips a drink from a container marked in Kree letters that translate to milky something. Peter passes out, and all the Guardians join Nebula as she carries him back to bed, something that sounds like they have to do all the time. And when she tucks him in, he grabs her arm and says, "I love you, Gamora," which is really gonna sting Nebula, since Gamora was always the preferred one when it came to Thanos' affections. Though who knows, the way Peter looks at Nebula later in this movie, there might be something there. On Directed by James Gunn, the lights switch out in Peter's bedroom, a way of showing James Gunn putting this trilogy to bed. Now, in an exterior establishing shot, Nowhere is established with new coordinates. Now, these kind of location coordinates from all three movies have been confirmed to contain James Gunn's long-lost Easter egg. But it's gonna take us some time to decode the ones in this movie, especially since we haven't fully decoded the ones in the past two films. But trust me, we will break this down in a future video once we do. It's gonna be a very big deal when this Easter egg is finally decoded. Now remember, in Volume 1, the coordinates were M3RD 17H17211 plus 2121224, which the online codebreaker community translated to Meredith Quill X or something related to that. But Nowhere now being different coordinates tells us that this skull is now mobile, pilotable battleship with giant jet engines on the back, setting up the big twist in the third act. In the meantime, if you want to try decoding these yourself, the coordinates are, for Nowhere, it's now M211 R516 XS16C plus 1615 1MW. Counter Earth is K20H MW1748 P2S plus 5M5 P0Z4, and for OrgoCorp A41P P23 26Y430 plus 174144V. Rocket tests out Chekhov's gravity boots, I'm calling them, because he says he's testing to see if they work upside down on sloped surfaces, really setting up the later use of these in the film in the OrgoCorp exterior. They all snack on roasted Orlonis on sticks. Orlonis are the rat creatures that we see scurrying around all these movies. Kraglin is back, played by Sean Gunn, who does the physical performance of Rocket in all these movies, James Gunn's brother. He's got Yondu's fin and arrow that he gained at the end of Volume 2, but he's struggling to command the arrow, maybe because he's focusing too much on the whistle and not enough on the heart power connection that Yondu said is really needed to direct this arrow. And that could be why the arrow plunges right into where? Nebula's heart, like Cupid's arrow, but she does not find love in this movie. Barrison Kraglin is Cosmo the space dog, returning from the Holiday Special, and before that, the Collector's Vault in Volume 1. She is telekinetic and voiced by Maria Bakalova. Cosmo in the comics is based on the tragic story of Laika, the Russian dog who was sent into space by the Soviet Union on a test mission and never returned home, like the animals in this movie, cruelly sacrificed in the name of science. Rocket reminds us of Mantis's empathic abilities, asking her to cheer Peter up, saying, "Why don't you just touch him and make him happy?" And Groot asks, "I am Groot?" And they all gag and say, "No, not like that." Gunn has said that in the past that many of Groot's "I am Groots" translate to F-bombs and filthy phrases. And then Adam Warlock flies through space, set to Heart's Crazy on You.
Yo, when he showed up, when Adam Warlock showed up, the seats went crazy, bro. It was like his entrance in, so the seat's shaking a little bit, and you're like, all right, cool. And then when he came and Rocket's setting up his stuff, and he gets hit, I'm talking about it's boom, boom. I'm like, yo, I'm not ready for this, bro. Like, the trailers had me, like, prepared for it because they showed some trailers in 4DX, but, like, bro, I was not fucking ready.
Adam was incubated in Aisha's golden cocoon in the Volume 2 post-credit scene. The bolt in his head is a nod to the comics version of the character who carried the Soul Gem, one of the Infinity Gems, Infinity Stones, in his head, as he plays a major role in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. But the MCU kind of reassigned that detail to Vision in a way with the Mind Stone. I would say Vision has been to the MCU, along with Doctor Strange, what Adam Warlock does in the comics. Like, in the comics, he's not really a doltish mama's boy. He's more like Space Jesus, engineered by a group of scientists called the Enclave and renamed from him to Warlock by the High Evolutionary. But James Gunn's point with all these movies is to expose the folly of supposed genetic superiority and how it really leads to bigger monsters than the monsters are. Now, Crazy on You is actually playing on Rocket's Zune. As he digs up this device, we later realize this is the key card that he rigged to free himself and the others of Batch 89, showing that he has never let go of that mission to free anyone else on that ship. Adam Warlock tackles and grabs a dazed Rocket, who uses those gravity boots to slip out of his grasp. The Kree letters in orange neon next to him translate to UK. Adam says,
Why did you go, Squirrel?
yeah, part of the running joke of these movies of everyone calling Rocket different mammals.
Your associates are welcome. Even that triangle-faced monkey there.
You're leaving me with that fox?
He's not a fox.
The rabbit is correct and clearly the smartest among you.
Rabbit?
Nebula confronts Adam.
On the ground!
Her hover pose and her arm shifted into a glowing blaster makes her look a lot like Iron Man when he initially tried to detain Loki in the 2012 Avengers. Nebula even amplifies her voice with a loudspeaker function. And it kind of sounds like we hear the Stark Repulsor warm-up sound effect during these scenes. So who knows, Rocket may have built upon his nanotech after seeing the Stark tech during his time on Earth in Endgame. Adam punches Nebula in the jaw, dislocating it. This is the same jaw dislocation that Nebula snapped back into place when she was fighting Gamora in Volume 1. He tosses her into that Orlone stand and she knocks them everywhere. Groot pounces on Adam and he cocoons him in his branches, but since Adam is accustomed to busting out of cocoons, this doesn't last long. Groot gets beheaded, but luckily later sprouts branch legs out of his head, looking like the spider head form of the alien shapeshifter in John Carpenter's The Thing, starring Peter's dad, Ego. They're able to repel Adam, but this attack on Rocket leaves him mortally wounded, with the others unable to use a med pack due to a cybernetic kill switch installed by Wyndham, who considered Rocket's parts proprietary technology. So on death's door, Rocket flashes back to Wyndham's initial operation. A close-up of Rocket's eye, his trembling, restrained body with tubes and needles. You can actually see his paws shaking in the shot. Remember, his Xandar booking screen in Volume 1 showed, quote, cybernetic skeletal structure, enhanced phalange and metacarpal bones, and genetically augmented cerebral cortex, which means they augmented his paws to give him opposable thumbs, and they made him smart enough to know what they are doing to him. We see a close-up of 89P13 tattooed to his chest. Remember, this was the numerical code that Rocket had in the first film, and now we know that he was part of Batch 89 that also included 89Q12, aka Lila, who was also listed as an associate on that booking screen, meaning either Rocket told others about her over the years, but since Quill says that Rocket doesn't talk about his past that much, more likely scenario is that Wyndham told other authorities Rocket might bring her up, which is also pretty effed up of him. So Rocket meets these others of Batch 89 in the cage. Lila is an otter creature voiced by Linda Cardellini, who also plays Laura Barton in the MCU, but was a past collaborator with James Gunn in the Scooby-Doo films and the movie Super. Lila, of course, is Rocket's past love in the comics, but here it really just seems like they're really, really good friends, and it never builds beyond that. Teefs the Walrus is voiced by Asen Chaudhry. He tells Rocket,
she plays, oh my god, Velma plays
in Volume 2,
Lila.
there is a painting of Rocket's animal colleague Wall Russ, appearing on that wall of the brothel in Contraxia behind Yondu. Michaela Hoover voices Floor the rabbit, an albino with red eyes, who speaks through a voice box and has these robotic spider legs, reminding us of the initially creepy Babyface in Toy Story, but is really just the sweetest of the bunch. And Rocket's first spoken word is hurts. Kid Rocket is voiced by Noah Raskin, but they comfort him, and Rocket later remembers playing tag with the Batch 89 and laughing, so by remembering these, he's already making peace with passing on. Meanwhile, the Rockets are heading to OrgoCorp to save him. After Tony Stark called him a Build-A-Bear, they are essentially going back to the manufacturer for the directions. We hear Rainbows Since You Be Gone that we heard in the trailers, and they are piloting their new ship, the Bowie. In Volume 1 and Volume 2, the ship was the Milano, named after Alyssa Milano. That ship wrecked in Volume 2, so in Infinity War and Endgame, the new ship was the Benatar, named after Pat Benatar. This new largest ship is named after David Bowie.
I like the Bowie.
Daydream played when they
The
first
Bowie,
arrived to Nowhere.
the Bowie looks fire.
Aisha and Adam meet with Herbert Wyndham on his base on Counter Earth. Now, in the comics, the high evolutionary Herbert Wyndham is Marvel's ultimate geneticist, initially introduced in Thor comics in 1966, and he played a role in the 2008 Annihilation Conquest storyline that these Guardians films are partly based on. He's known for creating animal-human hybrids like the Anti-Men or the New Men, and having a fortress on Mount Wundagore, where Pietro and Wanda Maximoff spent some time as Bebes. Here he's played by Jacudi Luigi, whom Gunn just worked with last year on HBO's Peacemaker. Counter Earth in the comics is a...
I've been slacking on Peacemaker, so I'm gonna have to watch Peacemaker, but yeah, I'm gonna do it when I get off stream.
Synthetic version of Earth created by the High Evolutionary and place a microsecond out-of-dimensional sink in order to hide it from Earth, but here it's just an artificial copy of Earth built in physical space. In the comics, it's populated by the New Men, but in this movie, it is a similar race of Wyndham's evolved animals from Batch 90 and beyond. We learn that Wyndham himself created the Sovereign as, quote, an aesthetic experiment, calling them, quote, beautiful numbskulls, but your egos have run wild. This is why the Sovereign, when we met them in Volume 2, or their planet, didn't have any basis in Marvel Comics. They were original creations by Gunn because Gunn always intended them to be products of a higher power, their obsession with genetic design, inherited by the High Evolutionary's genetic superiority, and their oddly artificial planetary chain really a construct the way Counter Earth is. Also interesting that the Abelisks fed on the Sovereign's Annulax batteries, or if you're Drax, Harvillary batteries, and generally terrorize the Sovereign, when Wyndham also has on his ship Abelisks, suggesting that they were also his creations. Just shows that Wyndham trying to play God and create his own animal kingdom results in these species devouring each other. He's no better than the Celestials are at creating peaceful, balanced biodiversity. Wyndham says Adam was meant to be the warlock, the apogee of that people. In the comics, it's the High Evolutionary who renames him, this being's divine name from the Enclave, and renaming him Adam Warlock. But Aisha blames Wyndham for taking Adam out of the cocoon too early. And I love the design of Wyndham's stretched out face tissue, how it's pulled over this metallic clip on his temple. In the flashbacks, that same metal clip is on the outside of his skin. So right away, we know that his present day face is really a mask covering something horrible underneath that happened in the time between. The Guardians arrive at Orgo Corp, Orgo meaning organic or carbon based, as this is Wyndham's corporate front for the cybernetic parts and implants used around the galaxy. The fact that Yondu knew scientists made Rocket tells us that this galaxy knows who Wyndham is and just looks the other way when it comes to his experiments on lower life forms. Nebula points out how this facility is bioformed. Instead of being built, it's composed of living matter. This structure, it's fleshy, and it has a thick yellow fluid running through it. Inside, you see the yellow fluid running through hoses and pouring down fountains. This could be the same fluid as the Abelisks' yellow blood, especially since Wyndham made them both, and it could even be the same yellow fluid derived from the celestial spinal tissue on Nowhere that Drax splashed into. This movie doesn't explicitly link all of this, but they all look like the same thing, and it would make sense for Wyndham to try to evolve life forms using goo that he pulls out of the corpses of the gods of the cosmos. They fly the Bowie through these plasma shields, and Mantis reminds Peter that he has family back on Earth, his grandfather Jason, who made a cameo back in Missouri in Volume 2, setting up the ending scene of this movie. Now, Peter falsely remembers that his grandfather, quote, screamed in my face and pushed me out of the room, which is not true at all. Grandpa was the one who put Meredith's present in his backpack for him and tried to keep him from running away. And Peter says,
you know what's sad? People on Earth die when they're like 50.
Are you about to die?
I'm not 50!
And if you look closely at Drax, when Mantis asks if Peter's about to die at age 50, Drax nods. Also, he's eating Zarg nuts in this scene. This is a snack food that he ate very slowly in Infinity War to show his ability to become invisible.
You're eating a Zarg nut.
But my movement was so slow that it's imperceptible.
Peter's red shirt in all of these scenes has an Orloni on it. Maybe this is a shirt he got from that roasted Orloni stand on Nowhere. And Nebula's contact arrives. The Ravagers, led by Sylvester Stallone, returning next to Kar Ogord from Volume 2. Also returning is Kruger, who opens Doctor Strange-style slingering portals. He is a Lem species, a sorcerer. In the comics, he's actually Sorcerer Supreme from Earth 691, an alternate 31st century reality. His Ravager badge on his chest has a green gem on it, which he might use as his own Eye of Agamotto. Now, of course, it wouldn't be the Time Stone. The Time time stone was atomized in this universe, remember. There's also Martin X, once again played by Michael Rosenbaum, and Mainframe, who was previously voiced by Miley Cyrus, but is now voiced by Tara Strong, who voices Miss Minutes in the TVA.
Tara
Loki.
Strong,
We learned Gamora has joined these
okay.
Ravagers. Remember, this is the alternate 2014 Gamora from Avengers Endgame, who turned against Thanos, but since went her own separate way from the Guardians because she has no memories with Peter and the other Guardians of the Galaxy. She and Nebula just give each other this wordless nod, which I love it. It's just how these sisters communicate throughout this movie. The OrgoCorp jumpsuits that they change into have this interesting logo that looks like an X, but kind of like a flayed man, evoking both the Vitruvian Man of Leonardo da Vinci, but also poor Rocket when he was splayed during his operation. Rocket flashes back to another memory with Wyndham when he completed complex equations on the blackboard and seeing Counter Earth as Wyndham points to the blue sky and a rocket inspiring 89P13's chosen name. And at this point, slightly older Rocket is now voiced by Bradley Cooper again. Wyndham explains that the chants they are listening to are a recording, quote, over 5,000 years old, translating to be not as you are, but as you should be. This would suggest that Wyndham has access to sound recordings from 3000 BC. Now, the language he spoke sounded like Latin, but ancient Rome was not that old, so this must be another older civilization like the Kree or the Xandarians, or hey, maybe even the Eternals. Whatever the source, sound recordings from 5,000 years prior sound like something Wyndham could have gotten via a connection to a time traveler like Kang the Conqueror. His telekinetic purple armor seems to operate similarly to
Yeah,
Kang's
I peeped
suit in
that. I
Quantumania.
peeped
Wyndham
that.
shows Rocket his plan.
I peeped when he lifted up Adam Warlock. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like kind of the same tech that Kang had, but it's purple.
For Batch 90, a chamber
So
with
blue.
mist that can guide any organism through millions of years of evolution in an instant, demonstrating this on a turtle who becomes something like a pissed off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and immediately goes violent due to the overproduction of a certain kind of protein. Now, it is not labeled as such, but this process looks a lot like Terrigenesis, a process in the Marvel world in which Terrigen mist is inhaled and causes the creature to mutate into a superpowered inhuman. In the comics, that's how Kamala Khan gets her powers. Though in the MCU, she's a mutant, not an inhuman. Young Rocket says they can't be peaceful, but Wyndham corrects him, can't, with a proper British accent, which also sounds like he's calling Rocket something awful, but also perhaps referencing the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who founded the ethical principle that an action can only be moral if A, it is motivated by a sense of duty, and B, its maxim may be rationally willed a universal objective law. Wyndham believes he is following Kantian ethics, to rebuild the world, to free it from violence, even if his methods to achieve that are cruel. Rocket observes the problem with the filter causing this side effect, something Wyndham didn't see, proving to Wyndham that Rocket possesses a brain uniquely capable of invention. Although all of Wyndham's creations went through this kind of cruel experimentation, only Rocket succeeded this way, which could just be a random coincidence, or might suggest that Rocket has some unique genetic condition, the way Peter Quill, from his mother Meredith's genes, was the only one of Ego's progeny to carry the celestial gene. Will the MCU nut up and label this mutation? Maybe in 2026. Space Hogs, in the meantime, plays as the Guardians float down toward OrgoCorp in these colorful spacesuits, which look like the Among Us suits, but are actually references to the spacesuits in 2001: A Space Odyssey, according to James Gunn. Nebula saws into the flesh wall, spewing up this yellow blood, and Peter tries to confess his love to Gamora, but she shuts him down, and the others chime in.
Peter, you know this is an open line, right?
What?
We're listening to everything you're saying.
And it is painful.
And you're just telling me now?
We were hoping it would stop on its own.
But I switched it over to private.
What color button did you push?
Blue, for the blue suit.
Oh, no.
Blue is the open line for everyone.
Orange is for blue.
What?
Black is for orange. Yellow is for green. Green is for red, and red is for yellow.
No, yellow is for yellow. Green is for red, red is for green.
I don't think so.
Try it then.
You were right.
Haha, only yellow is the correct color, meaning only Peter would hear it when they actually want to yell at him. Green is for red is for green. Drax wears a red suit here. In the comics, he is the color green, but back in the first film, James Gunn changed him to the color gray with red tattoos because he said the MCU already had enough green-skinned characters. They create this airlock seal in the flesh wall, setting up the same technology to be used as the airlock seal between Wyndham's ship and Nowhere in Act 3. They are found by Master Karja, played by Nathan Fillion, who cameoed in Volume 1 as a blue-skinned alien prisoner in the kiln, and cameoed in a deleted scene for Volume 2 as Wonder Man Simon Williams in various movie posters in Missouri. The OrgoCorp security monitor is a cameo by Jennifer Holland, who plays Amelia Harcourt in DC Universe, and yes, is James Gunn's wife. And people get weirdly triggered when Gunn puts her in stuff, almost like they are looking for any possible reason to be mad at James Gunn these days, even though he has always put his friends and family and everything he makes, like all directors do. For example, the OrgoCorp worker they forced to help them is Yura, played by Daniela Melchior, who played Redcatcher 2 in James Gunn's
What? That was her? Yo!
Them is Yura, played by Danielle.
Oh snap!
Melchior, who
Okay.
played Redcatcher 2 and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Now, your time with the Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't have to end with the conclusion of the film trilogy. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is a single-player, story-driven action-adventure game out now for PlayStation and Xbox consoles and PC. You've probably heard some great things about this game. It won Best Narrative at the Game Awards 2021. The game features an all-new story set in an original universe. These characters are inspired.
It's not the
really
same.
unique in being their leader, calling the shots, and trying to bring those strong personalities together. There's a great soundtrack, of course, with both an epic orchestral score and some classic 80s jams. They made an original rock album just for the game. The game includes many outfits for the Guardians inspired by the comics and the MCU, including suits inspired by the 2008 Guardians of the Galaxy comics, just like in Volume 3. Continue your Guardians journey with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy on PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam. The others sneak through OrgoCorp, where a video clip proclaimed that OrgoCorp has been producing cybernetic implants for the galaxy for 300 years, meaning that Wyndham has been active since at least the 18th century. Another clue that he might be aligned with Kang and has access to multiple periods of time. Gamora, Nebula, Peter, and Yura access the archives to find 89P13's file. Meanwhile, they argue.
Whoever it was that you were in love with, it sounds more like her.
Her? That's ridiculous.
Do not bring me into this.
Knock it off!
What? Never noticed how black your eyes were.
They were replaced by my father as a method of torture.
He
damn.
picked a pretty set.
Nebula reminds us that she too was cobbled together with spare parts as a form of torture by her father, Thanos, which is why I think she and Rocket make great leaders of this group by the end of this film, because they are, of all these characters, the most broken. They take the elevator back up, and Peter recaps Infinity War and Endgame for us.
We used to be in love. Yeah, she was my girlfriend. And she
Yo,
doesn't remember it because
the amount of times he kept bringing this up, I was like, I was feeling, I was like Nebula, bro. I was just like, bro, how many times is this nigga gonna keep bringing up that him and Gamora were in love with each other? Like,
it wasn't
bro.
her. Because her dad threw her off a magic cliff and she died, and then I lost my temper and nearly destroyed half the universe. And she came back out of the past. There she is. Everyone else who died in the past stayed dead. Not her. Why? Was it the magic cliff? I don't know. That's some freaking Infinity Stone scientist. And some dumbass Earth dude who met a girl, fell in love. That girl died. And then came back a total dick.
You left out some important information, but that is the gist of it.
I like how Peter owns up to his part in punching Thanos out of that trance when they nearly got that Infinity Gauntlet off his hand. But to be fair to Peter Quill, it wasn't solely his fault that Thanos won. A lot of people made a lot of mistakes. Also, Thanos was just a badass. He's gonna find one way or another. Also, this whole scene does feel like James Gunn's meta commentary on the MCU, taking his characters and killing one of them off in other movies, complicating his plan for them. But I love how Peter tosses that 89P13 sphere like a baseball. Chris Pratt did the same thing with the orb in the 2014 film and dropped it, a take that they left in the film. We see in this section how a younger Gamora's less empathetic approach as a child of Thanos, as she threatens everyone and shoots Jennifer Holland in the leg, while Peter prefers a less violent approach, promising Yura he's just gonna speak to the Orgo sentries from his heart, but really he's just lying to her to get into the system to make their suits float. He starts by using his heart and ends up using the kind of clever move that Rocket would with his brain, because Rocket did essentially the same thing in the kiln in Volume 3, causing all the guards to float so they can get out of there. Meanwhile, Rocket remembers the memory where they all pick their names.
Someday, I'm gonna make great machines that fly. And me and my friends are gonna go flying together into the forever and beautiful sky. Lila and Teefs and Flora and me. Rocket.
Rocket.
Remember, Rocket got that name from seeing a rocket soaring over Counter-Earth. His dream was never to live on Counter-Earth, it was to escape it and be an adventurer. And while he dreams of going flying into the forever and beautiful sky with these three, this also applies to what he ends up doing with his other friends, as he snaps at Peter in Volume 2.
I was cybernetically engineered to pilot a spacecraft.
Remember, there was also that random memory Peter recalled of jetpacking into the forever and beautiful sky with Rocket and Baby Groot. So Rocket definitely achieved his dreams just with another family. And poor Teefs. His eyelids are literally motorized by mechanical parts, meaning the poor guy cannot even blink naturally. Every time we see these guys, my heart breaks. Nebula explains that the High Evolutionary is considered a god in corners of the universe, using OrgoCorp to fund his experiments outside of intergalactic law, which is what Roman Day was referring to back in Volume 1.
89P13 calls itself Rocket. the result of illegal genetic and cybernetic experiments on a lower life form.
Nebula says that Wyndham created Zeronians, Animen, and Sovereign. Sovereign, Aisha's people, Animen we talked about, but Zeronians are the pale-skinned humanoids with plates that cover their mouths, seen beside the Collector in the Thor the Dark World post-credit scene, and seen in the background of all the Guardians titles. But in the comics, the Zeronians are a peaceful race who can gain powers from solar radiation. Karja and Aisha catch one of the Ravagers outside Corp, and they use Adam to interrogate him, but he fries that Ravager way too fast, just like how that Grandmaster melted that captive on Sakaar and Thor Ragnarok. Adam Warlock feels bad about Blurp being left behind, so these two team up. Blurp is a fur-covered Fasaki, confirmed by James Gunn to be the same species that all the people bet on in the bar on Nowhere in Volume 1, when it was fighting the Orloni. Peter listens to the flaming lips, "Do you realize?" on his Zune as they float through space, and Drax talks to Peter about metaphors, saying, "I know lots of analogies, Quill. Analogies, metaphors, etc. For instance, Gamora's head is like a lily pad because it is green."
Metaphor.
Calling back Drax's ongoing struggle with metaphors from the first film.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with the walking thesaurus on that one.
Do not ever call me a thesaurus.
It's just a metaphor, dude.
His people are completely literal. Metaphors are gonna go over his head.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch him.
Then onto another flashback. Wyndham drunkenly demands P13 to tell him how he knew about the protein issue and demonstrates that he figured it out, evolving a kangaroo and a monkey into humanoid forms. He says Batch 89 was never going to counter Earth, saying you can figure out the complex workings of cytoplasmic filtration systems, but you couldn't figure out that.
Yo, this dude was
He's
evil,
a genius
bro.
when it comes to technical stuff, but
Yo,
he's just too trusting.
yo,
And that's not his
this-
fault. That's Wyndham's fault for giving him this brain and giving him too loving of a heart.
Bro, Wyndham
orders to
was,
keep Rocket
bro,
for
the High
speed, and for the
Evolutionary
rest
was
of
a
Batch 89.
dickhead, bro. He was
And
evil.
then on to Counter Earth.
Oh my
Faith No
God.
More's We Care a Lot plays as they arrive to this planet, which is interesting, just like Earth. They got polar ice caps like Earth does. Nebula says the gravity is Xandar -1, comparing the gravity to that of the planet Xandar, capital of the Nova Corps. And as they approach the city, there's a doppelganger for Liberty Island and the Statue of Liberty, but with Herbert Wyndham holding a monkey, his way of making himself the savior and the open-armed greeter for all these animal hybrids. They land the Bowie right in the middle of the suburb, and they realize that Wyndham designed it to reflect American suburbia in the 1980s, the exact era and setting that Peter left behind. This girl bounces a kickball to Drax, and he immediately pegs her with it.
Damn.
That sound effect.
Damn.
It's just so specific. We all know that sting of getting pegged in the face during dodgeball. These suburbanites rage, and Groot gets pegged in the face with a rock, so he grows into this stretched out monstrous
Kaiju.
form, and he wags his tongue to scare them. It
He
looks
said,
like he's using a chunk of bark
Groot
as a
Kaiju.
tongue. He's foretelling
No,
his
don't
own
Kaiju.
ambitions to grow into
Don't
Alpha Groot,
Kaiju.
where he would be a shower no grower in the post-credit scene. Inside this Counter-Earth home, we hear this wild song that's called Koinu no Carnival from Minute Waltz by Ahamic. So this is produced by a voice synthesizer software called Vocaloid. There are over 15 Vocaloid creators that are represented here, including what sounds like Cosmo howling at one point. It is so cool that they had this awesome song in here. And the detail throughout this house is just so good. The family portraits and the growing pain style setup.
The family portraits was hilarious.
So good.
The family portraits was my favorite. Honestly, when they showed the family portraits, I was like, yo.
Portraits and the growing pain style setup, Yadro figurines, it looks like, even this kind of Busy World of Richard scary wallpaper that shows a bird sitting on a swing and a mouse walking past a fence. Peter uses the woman's car, but he and Nebula struggle to open the door.
Push it down.
I am pushing down on it.
Oh yeah.
Push the button.
That's where he uses the.
Looks like you're pushing the keyhole.
The what?
There's a button under
Bro,
the
the
handle.
first F
Press that
bomb
in.
in Marvel, bro.
Okay. Now what?
Open the door.
So this, of course, was uncensored in the movie, but it is the MCU's first official uncensored F-bomb. All the others we've heard so far have been censored, like Senator Stern in Iron Man 2.
You, Mr. Stark. You, buddy.
Or self-censored via editing or some other form, like Nick Fury when he dusted in the Infinity War post-credit scene.
Well done.
Or the running gag in the Spider-Man films where the what the skit cut off.
What the That's right, folks.
James Gunn said that you can only get away with one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie, and
Right.
he's generally right. He said that Chris Pratt improvised it and they left it in. The MPAA restrictions on these things are really weird and subjective, but usually they prefer it, if you're gonna try to put an F-bomb in a PG-13 movie, if it's gonna happen at all, to occur at least an hour into the movie. And this one hits at an hour and 10 minutes in. As Peter tries to drive the car, since he was a
That's
kid when he left
weird.
Earth, he's terrible at it. The street sign cautioning drivers about pedestrians has animal heads instead of normal round human heads. Gamora drunkenly goes through Peter's backpack that he left Earth with, finding a Polaroid photo of Peter with his mother Meredith and grandfather Jason, and one of Peter's ALF cards.
Why was she going through his bag in the first place? That's what I want to know. Why were you going through his backpack?
Polaroid photo.
She had it all. She went in there, had it all spread out on the I'm like, yo, why are you going through this man's backpack? Like, you don't know him like that. Or, like, I'll use this version and you don't know him like that. What?
Peter with his mother Meredith and grandfather Jason.
I didn't understand that. Why?
We saw some Alf stickers on the tape deck on the Milano in the
What was
first
the
film.
point?
Alf comics are technically Marvel canon. Like Alf shows up in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and one of these comics showed up in I Am Groot. During this section, we hear Alice Cooper's "I'm Always Chasing Rainbows." Peter, Nebula, and Groot drive through the slums of Counter Earth, and we see a drug deal going wrong. An octopus head dealing with some cockroach
That's
heads.
the
dealer is
conclusion.
currently played by Dane Robert DiLiegro, a basketball player turned actor who played the Predator in Prey. Wyndham broods while the test subject Phyla runs in a ring around him. Like the jogging sequence in 2001: A Space Odyssey, Wyndham says these kids survive on 30 calories a day and an hour of sleep a week, and he plans for these to populate one of his upcoming colonies. Phyla is played by Kai Zen and returns in the post-credit scene, the MC version of Phyla Vel, who becomes
Phyla
Quasar in the
Vel.
Annihilation Conquest storyline, the
Quasar.
artificially created daughter of the Kree, Marvel, and companion to Drax's daughter, Moondragon. Based on her glowing eye in that post-credit scene, it looks like her powers are going to be rooted in the same kind of Kree cosmic radiation source as Monica Rambeau, Kamala Khan, and Carol Danvers. And then the final flashback, Rocket returns to the Batch 89 cage to free the others, enjoying one big hug from Lila, who repeats, "It really is good to have Fred." And then blam, shot in the back by Wyndham by hugging Rocket.
Why does he have a regular, and that's the other thing, why do he have a regular ass pistol? Like, not a laser gun, a pistol.
Shield. But perhaps the most disturbing thing about this scene is how Wyndham wails mockingly back at Rocket. Like in Silence of the Lambs, when the senator's daughter screams in the well and Buffalo Bill just screams back at her, all creepy. In Rage, Rocket sprints to Wyndham and claws at his face. And Wyndham fires back at him, missing Rocket. But as Rocket realizes later, those blasts hit Teefs and Floor. And
No, it wasn't. Wait, it wasn't Wyndham. It was the guards.
so back in the present, we get our first
It
look
was
at
the
Wyndham from
guards.
side,
It wasn't
where we see
Wyndham.
that his face is really just his skin. Back in the present,
He missed. No, he missed that up. It wasn't Wyndham. It was the guards that
sprints to
shot him.
Wyndham and claws at his face, and Wyndham fires back at him, missing Rocket. But as Rocket realizes later, those blasts hit Teefs and Floor. And so back
Or
in the
maybe it
present,
was Wyndham. Wait, no, he didn't. No, cause no, Wyndham only fired one shot, so it was the
we get our
guards.
first look at Wyndham from the side, where we see that his face is really just
He
his
got that
skin
part wrong.
tugged and bolted in to the side of his head. The reason he looks this way is because Rocket left him this way. And Wyndham chats with Peter.
I visited your planet many years ago.
Earth hasn't been my planet in a long time.
Your people had wonderful spirit. The art and music and literature were some of the finest in the universe. Earth would be a fabulous place were it not for the ignorance and bigotry.
Okay.
It inspired me to create Counter-Earth.
I don't care.
All of the good and none of the bad.
I don't need another speech by some impotent whack job whose mother didn't love him, rationalizing why he needs to conquer the universe.
Yes, another meta line. Poor Peter, after hearing villains like Ego and Thanos explain their evil plans and why they weren't evil but justified, Peter's just had enough of it. It's interesting to note that Wyndham says he visited Earth, but he doesn't consider it his home world. So where did he come from? It's also kind of cool how Earth's culture is admired throughout the universe. It just explains how in the Guardians movies, the people of nowhere have started to embrace things like Christmas and rock music, just something special about Earth. Peter points out how Wyndham's counter-Earth society ain't perfect, and on a dime, Wyndham's like, yeah, and he just nukes the planet, and he launches. Home after home in his suburb explode, and its red geometric ship rises, cracking this bridge. The speed to which Wyndham's willing to do this, and threaten to do this to Aisha, makes it seem like Wyndham has dumped other test planets before. I mean, Thanos most likely wrapped up a higher body count, and Kang has definitely killed trillions in alternate timelines, but Wyndham, having been alive for 300 years, must rank up there among the most murderous Marvel villains. And seeing its neighborhood explode just makes it so sad that we spent so much time in that neighborhood with that nice family and their awesome blue soda, their really cool music, their awesome wallpaper, just countless families and children all slaughtered. And this includes Aisha, who dies so fast in that blast that Adam Warlock and we had barely any time to register it. Groot and Peter get in the shootout with Wyndham's men, and Peter tackles Teal out the window. Groot dives after them, and he latches onto Peter mid-fall, kind of like the Mark 7 suit in the 2012 Avengers catching Tony mid-dive, and Groot extends his branches to form bird wings and allows Peter to fall with style. They crash land, they kill Teal, and Peter pries the 89P13 schematics out of Teal's
Yo,
head
the way he
with style. They crash land, they kill.
Bro, this nigga's face, bro. With the tongue out. Oh, yo, the way, bro.
Teal, and Peter pries the 89P13 schematics out of Teal's head, and he catches a ride with Gamora on the Bowie off this doomed planet. Meanwhile, Nebula, Drax, and Mantis hop on a Wyndham ship and nearly freeze in space, setting up the threat of Peter freezing in the vacuum of space in the final act. Peter, Gamora, and Groot rush to bypass Rocket's kill switch, but Rocket slips into this limbo realm that's really just an overexposed version of their Batch 89 cage room on Wyndham's ship, which is pretty tragic because it means Rocket never really escaped it mentally. Despite the others saying they fly around, Rocket is stuck in this room when they come back to initially bring him to the afterlife. But either way, this crossroads right here is the one place that these four souls ever shared. Now this is yet another take on the afterlife in the MCU. After the ancestral plane of the Black Panther mythology, the Duat and Moon Knight, Valhalla and Thor Love and Thunder, the Soul Realm of Infinity War, like all of those, it's somewhat abstract and arguably a reflection of the nearly departed subconscious. But it's interesting in this scenario that it's not the Dire who chooses to return to life, it's the forces beyond who keep him there. Lila stops Rocket and says not yet, that he still has a purpose. So is this Rocket telling himself that he has a purpose, or some other cosmic force? The same force that Peter Quill witnessed when he grabbed the Power Stone, looked at Gamora, and saw his mother on her deathbed. Lila says, there are the hands that made us, and then there are the hands that guide the hands. She's saying that Wyndham created Rocket for his own reasons, but beyond Wyndham was a higher power who blessed Rocket with a unique brain beyond anything Wyndham could comprehend. And that brain, not what Wyndham did, is what makes Rocket special. And I think that higher power is totally connected to Meredith Quill, Peter's moment in that first film, and the moment Peter flashed back to his memories with his mother Meredith, and all the others in the moment he was fighting Ego in Volume 2 and Fleetwood Mac's Chain Played. I think this quote from Lila is also why Rocket chooses to spare Wyndham later. Yes, because he's a freaking guardian of the galaxy, but also Rocket wants to be the hands that guide the hands, feeling a higher calling as Frankenstein's monster to forgive the sinner and follow a more enlightened path. Lila says, my beloved raccoon, this story has been yours all along. You just didn't know
so
it.
Wyndham
As
did
James Gunn
survive.
has said,
But
Rocket
he
has
was
been
in-
the secret protagonist of the entire Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy.
Boy.
And as Rocket tries to correct her, saying, I'm not a raccoon,
never mind.
he's yanked back into consciousness as he's still in denial for now. Quill and Groot hug Rocket, and since Swole Groot can't get close enough because of his big bulky shoulders and pecs, he snakes in more branches to draw Rocket even closer to him. So the two factions, the Guardians, connect via radio. Mantis asks how they got off the ship. Groot chimes in, I am Groot. And from those three words, Mantis is able to gather that they jumped off the ship and Groot turned his body into a parachute. So not only are they all getting better at interpreting Groot's vocalizations, Mantis as an empath is just more sensitive at picking up the subtext between the words. Nebula breaks down in relief upon hearing that Rocket is okay. Remember, while all the other Guardians were dusted, Rocket and Gamora were the only two of them left behind, and those two spent 5 years together.
No,
So
wait,
they have
he meant
dusted.
Nebula.
Rocket and Gamora were the
He
only
meant
two of them
Nebula.
left
He meant Nebula.
behind, and those two spent 5 years together, so they have a much stronger friendship than most of the others do. Also during that time, Rocket wore Peter Quill's red scarf to remember him. What is this, a Taylor Swift lyric? I swear, this is the tightest group of friends in the MCU. I'm gonna miss them so much. So back on Nowhere, Cosmo joins the others playing cards, much like the famous dogs playing poker painting. At the table is Kraglin, Howard the Duck coming back, once again voiced by Seth Green, and a cameo by Boyd Kaufman, James Gunn's mentor from his days with Troma Entertainment, who actually played a prisoner at the Kiln in Volume 1, and then that Xandar antiques dealer from Volume 1, played by Christopher Fairbank, who had a great role on Andor and shared the screen for this iconic moment.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Cosmo telekinetically levitates her cards while telling her tragic Soviet backstory, pretty much the same story as Laika, the space dog, in real life, saying, 1966, the Soviets put me on a rocket knowing full well I could never return and would die in a fiery ball of death. But still to her, that's not as bad as Kraglin calling her a bad dog. So the Guardians approach Wyndham's ship, and the Bowie detaches into a gunship and two fighters. It's really, though, a flight maneuver is on the other.
This scene was crazy in 4DX, bro. I'm telling y'all, bro. Like,
Side,
This shit
Kraglin
was-
pilots
this
the
shit was
entire
crazy.
freaking skull of nowhere to fire upon Wyndham's ship. Wyndham screams, kill everyone on the head of that dead god. They use a celestial skull as a pirate ship to haunt Wyndham. It's such awesome symbolism because Wyndham considers himself a new god, improving on the designs of the Celestials, the dead gods, when really he's no more successful than they were. Later he screams at Recorder Vim, there's no god, that's why I stepped in. Yes, in James Gunn's archetypal battle of gods versus monsters, the gods are those who claim to be gods always lose. Wyndham
That's probably why he's gonna do good in DC.
Desperately activates the Hellspawn, the soldiers meant as an army to protect the new colony, hulking cybernetic animal hybrid drones and warriors who look so freaky. They invade nowhere. Kraglin has to concentrate to activate the Yaka arrow, and he briefly envisions Yondu. Michael Rooker returns to tell Kraglin to use his heart, boy, just as he told Peter while fighting Ego in Volume 2. It's not controlled with the whistle or with the mind, it's with the heart. Drax, Mantis, and Nebula run into Abelisks. Mantis is able to tame them, reminding us that they don't eat people, they eat batteries. Even when Drax was inside it, it didn't digest him. It has a strict diet of Anulax batteries, or if you're Drax, Harbulary batteries. The others pilot into Wyndham's shuttle bay. Adam Warlock and Blurp board Gamora and Quill's gunship, but Quill sets it to self-destruct, so they end up with Blurp in their arms. Blurp, by the way, in this movie is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who does most of the voices, including the Clone Troopers in Star Wars Clone Wars, a very talented man.
Wow.
And speaking of voiceover actors, Warpig was voiced by Judy Greer, who plays Scott Lang's ex-wife Maggie. It turns out all the Avenger spouses in the MCU are doing vocal cameos in this movie. Peter plays the Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which was also referenced in Spider-Man No Way Home.
No sleep till.
Dum, bum, bum, Brooklyn.
Beastie Boys are having a bit of a moment in Marvel right now with Intergalactic and the recent trailer for the Marvels, but then set to this music, we get a full 2-minute unbroken long take of the Guardians slaying their way
This
through
scene
this
was
hallway.
fire,
It's a true
man.
celebration of teamwork. Every 5 seconds there's a cool new detail the way they work together. Like we stay with Groot's branches initially as he punctures through the Hellspawn, one of them down the guy's throat. As Groot grows more and more branches to poke through his body, Mantis swings from this same branch like a gymnast beam and lands on a guy's shoulders, flipping him back into that same branch. Then Rocket shoots the Hellspawn, lands on Groot's shoulders, calling back that image in the kiln in the 2014 film. He runs along this branch, and the camera follows him as he jumps and shoots downward, and then through the hole in one of the Hellspawn's bodies that he
This
just
whole
shot. Then we
scene was
focus on Peter
fire,
Quill as he
man.
works his way down the hallway, attaching taser nodes to 3 different guys, and then just waits to activate them until they're all running back at him and Nebula. Nebula gets her neck dislocated, and her head just dangles down her back as she continues to fight, and we end the fight with Gamora using her Godslayer sword to sever that octopus captain in half, and Blur pops on the midsection stump. So cool. Mantis frees one of the hybrids.
I was screaming at something
Okay,
scary
what was
behind
this,
you. No,
bro?
you look really cool. Thank you.
This guy is named Lambshank, and I think he's voiced by James Gunn. Rocket returns to his old cage, looking inside and seeing a dozen more other kits just like him, and uses the same key card to free them. On the door, he reads the label, Lumnus Wildlife Center, TER 3211 9021. I would say these could be terrorist coordinates, but the coordinates were different in the Captain Marvel film and the Marvel's trailer, so I'm not really sure. Origin, North America, Kingdom, Animalia, Phylum, Chordata, that refers to animals with backbones. And then we
Right.
skip order, class, family, and get to genus, species, Procyon lotor, common name raccoon, which establishes Rocket as a true-born North American raccoon, and he came from Earth, just like Peter Quill did. Wyndham interrupts, tossing him, calling him an abomination, and 89P13. And the way Uji shouts this code, it sounds just like Javert and Les Miserables, shouting 24601. Rocket really has been his Jean Valjean, his lifelong pursuit, and Javert is destined to fail. Because I'm pretty sure when Russell Crowe fell into that fountain, he landed on his face. Gamora delivers on Quill's recurring promises that this would be a face-off, and he peels off Wyndham's face mask, revealing that gooey, disfigured face
That's why he
from
kept.
how Rocket left
That's
it.
why. That's why they kept saying, "It's a trap." No, if you know it's a trap, it's a face-off.
And this moment totally evokes Red Skull in the first Captain America film, a character who's technically
Yeah.
still alive in space in the MCU, and both villains come from the same philosophy of genetic superiority. Peter runs
Right.
back for his Zune, just like how he refused to leave the kiln without his Walkman and his mixtape in Volume 1. He tethers himself but cuts the cord to Space Glide, something he has done before when he rescued Gamora, and in that scene they pointed out that Gamora's cybernetic implants enabled her to survive in space for just a few minutes, implants that Peter also has, actually maybe thanks to Herbert Wyndham's Orgocorp now that I think of it, but he gets caught in debris and Peter starts to freeze and bloat. Adam Warlock redeems himself, touching Peter's finger, recreating Michelangelo's creation of Adam, as this really is a creation of Adam as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he scoots Papa Potato back into nowhere. Gamora joins the Ravagers. Peter tells the Guardians that he's leaving, as does Mantis. And Drax wants to leave with Mantis, but Nebula says, "You weren't born to be a destroyer, you were born to be a dad." Not Drax the Destroyer, Drax the dad. Quill
Drax
picks
the
Rocket to
dad.
lead that Guardians, and they salute him with a Ravager salute. I love the scene because they're all in a circle, all of them standing except Rocket, just like that moment on the Ravager's ship before the final battle in the first film, when Rocket was the last one to stand.
Bunch of jackasses standing in a circle.
and Groot says, "I love you guys." The first time we heard him say anything other than "I am Groot" or "We are Groot," but I like to think we, the audience, are in the heads of the Guardians in this moment. We are hearing what they are hearing, because after 9 years and 7 titles before this, finally our ears have adjusted to the vocal variances of Groot's voice, and we can understand him. We, finally, are Groot. Rocket sits beside 2 of the raccoon kits that he saved with a note from Peter written on a corner of an Alf print. "I went back and got this for you." Knowing how big a fan James Gunn is of Britney Spears, he did name his old dog after her. Is this not an Oops, I Did It Again reference?
Well, baby, I went down and got it for you.
Aw, you shouldn't have.
No, wrong song. Instead, he scrolls to the 2000s playlist and plays Florence and the Machine's The Dog Days Are Over. And everyone warms up to it, because as Wyndham said, there is just something about the arts and music of Earth. Groot dances again. We saw him rocking out in the Guardians Holiday Special. Rocket joins him. Peter, meanwhile, returns to Missouri and his grandfather, Jason Quill. The origin of Peter's middle name, Jason,
bro.
and Greg Henry once again plays Jason, as he did in the 2014 film and in a cameo in Volume 2. In the post-credit scene, Jason's newspaper includes a reference to Kevin Bacon's abduction in the holiday special and a shout out to James Gunn's dog, Lola. And back on Nowhere, the dance party rages. It draws in Drax, who previously insisted that he was not a dancer, but the kids get to him. And we see the new Guardians lineup, including Rocket and Groot, who will soon be Alpha Groot or King Groot with that crowned head in the post-credit scene, as well as Kraglin, Cosmo, Blurp, Adam Warlock, and Phyla Vel. The journey of this series has to bring a bunch of misfits together in a dance battle to save the universe. And that battle has finally been won. Please subscribe to the Deep Dive channel. Also,
yo, this was a good movie, bro. Like, I'm sad that, like, I'm not gonna say this is the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy like story, because he forgot to say it toward the end. It said after all the credits, it said that Star-Lord would will make a return. So my thing is like I just it's just gonna be, bro. I would want another Guardians movie or James to at least be co-director for a movie that has the Guardians in it, or and yeah, man, it's just, this was a really good movie, man, and I'm glad you know, I was looking forward to the new ROCKSTARS breaking it down, but it was a really good movie, man. It was because I really enjoy the Guardians like as a team, and even from the first movie, like I said, the first movie was really good, and yo, when they showed that trailer for the first Guardians, I just remember I was like, yo, yeah, I need to see this. I need more of this, and bro, and it's like James Gunn has just been hidden after hidden after hidden, bro. I would say I still think the first one is still better, just because of the tone of it, and it's because, you know, we're getting introduced to the Guardians, and them getting introduced to each other. And then I would say the third movie, and then the second one. All of them are like, you know, all of them are really good. Like, but if I had to put it in order, I'd put it in order like that, because I really enjoyed the first one. This third one was really good, and I really liked the second one. The second one was really good for, you know, a second movie. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this breakdown. Like, bro, I think my favorite scene was really that hallway scene, and it was the hallway scene where they're all fighting as one, and what is it? And I would say the Orgo Corp. That was a pretty cool scenes in that, but overall, all of it was really good. Like, I really liked the ending, like toward the end where, you know, they're attacking the High Evolutionary ship and getting the kids off and all that, and it's just like, bro, this movie, I only have good things to say about this movie. Like, it was really, really good movie to end off the Guardians, and I just hope there's more Guardians of the Galaxy. So, but yeah, man, this has been my reaction to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 breakdown by the new ROCKSTARS.